Hi everyone, how are you? And welcome to my first live stream of 2021. And no, it shouldn't have gone to this screen, so let me go back to the normal one. This is for my new show that I do now on a Friday morning at 10 a.m. on Facebook. So if you want to have a look at that, please go and check that out. So yes, we're into 2021 and things are still a little crazy. And what I wanted to go through today was Zoom meeting, because a lot of people have been using this now since probably last March, when here in the UK we went into lockdown for the first time. We're now into our third lockdown, and people are still working from home, but then education has now changed as well, where teachers are now having to do remote learning and having to use these tools that some of us kind of take for granted. We've been using it in our business for so long that it just becomes second nature. But for teachers, it's not necessarily so. They're used to teaching in classrooms, and now they're having to do this remote learning. So that is what I'm going to be going through in today's video. Hi, so if you don't know me, my name is Jason Kruger, and I help heart-centered businesses build and automate their online marketing systems. So in today's video, I wanted to go through Zoom meeting, but in the kind of from the perspective of if you haven't used Zoom before, so even from kind of the signing up process, and then just going through the settings that you might use. Now, a lot of what I want to go through is kind of aimed at teachers, because Zoom and this remote learning is not kind of second nature to a lot of them. They've been thrust into this kind of spotlight where online or remote learning has now become center stage, and we don't know how long it's going to last. So I thought I wanted to create this video just to help them, just with little things, so that when they're doing it, it's just easier for them to set up and kind of just get on with it without having to worry too much about the tech. Now, a lot of the things that I'm going to be covering is going to be for everyone, really, especially if you haven't really been using Zoom a lot. You might have been using other systems. So I just wanted to go through this today. And like I said, there are many other systems out there. There's Microsoft Teams, there's Google Meet, there are others like Blue Jeans, I think is another one. So there are so many different online systems out there, but Zoom seems to become the one that everyone is now using. So let's just get into this. So if I just share my desktop with you. So I've just signed up for a free account, and before we kind of go through this, the one thing that I wanted to kind of go through, which for some reason has now closed down on my desktop, so let me just open that back up. But what it was is looking at a screenshot of, there we go. So when you go to zoom.us, and if you haven't got an account, you can go on there and sign up for a free account. But at the bottom, when you start putting in, like when it asks you for your name, email address, and then the password that you want to use, it then also asks you now if you're signing up on behalf of a primary or secondary institution. So if you say yes, you then just have to agree to these terms and conditions. Now, unfortunately, this part I haven't been able to test because I'm not a teacher and I can't really do this side of things. So I don't know if they give you slightly extra benefits when you're signing up as a teacher, for instance, but it's now giving you that option. So teachers and that can go on there, sign up with your school email address, agree to this, and then you get a free account. So I just wanted to point that out. But then when you kind of log into your account on the web, this is what you're kind of greeted with. So it's just your kind of profile. It gives you a lot of information on here, and it tells you that you have 100 participants. Now, before they used to limit it to around 40 minutes a meeting, so I'm not sure if that is still a thing. I haven't seen any information regarding that, but it might have changed. Let's actually just have a look here on basic. So yes, they are. Sorry, so it is limited to 40 minutes still, but for a lot of the online learning, they're doing it in about 40-minute chunks anyway, half an hour or so. So a basic account should suffice when you're doing the remote learning. So these are just your general settings. The other thing that you might want to look to do is turning on your two-factor authentication. It just makes your account more secure. Like I said, this is just a test email address that I've signed up with. It's just a test account on here. But there are other things you can do. So you could potentially link it to your calendar. So if you just click on this, you can connect it to your Google calendar, your Exchange calendar, or your Office 365 calendar. So whenever you kind of setting up meetings, etc., it can go directly into your calendar for you. Now, what's happening now with a lot of schools is when they're doing these Zoom meetings, they're asking the parents and that to make sure that the name is the child's name, so people or the teachers can see who's actually on the call. But the other thing as well is to make sure that you're muted and the camera is turned off. Now, some people might not know this, that you can actually set up, when you set up your meetings or even your account, you can stop these by default, so that when you're creating your meetings, you don't have to always remember those settings. And that seems to be an area where people are not too sure of that, or even know that they can do that. And they go into the meetings and they're having to go and quickly mute everyone, etc. So if I go into meetings down the side here, this is where I'm just going to be setting up the meetings. Now, before we kind of get to this, I just wanted to go through these other settings first, because these are going to just be setting up the meetings, etc. So if we just look at settings. So if I go into the settings part over here, now what you'll notice is that they are asking people to use at least one of the security measures, which is either enabling waiting rooms or having people to actually sign into Zoom before they are allowed into the meeting. So these are things that are kind of, as I said, I signed up for this yesterday, and I have not touched any settings. So I just wanted to show you exactly what's kind of activated by default. So at the moment, waiting rooms aren't set up by default, but if you set up a meeting and you haven't got at least one of these security measures, then it will actually enable waiting rooms automatically for you. So what I'm going to do is let me share my screen bigger so you can see this a lot clearer. So once, if I just go down some of these settings, a lot of these you don't need to worry about. A lot of them are activated by default. But the one thing that you can do, and this will then apply to all meetings that you create, is that you can make sure that your host video, so if you're hosting the meeting, that your video is always turned on, that your participants' video is always turned off. And then when it comes to the audio type, etc., you can do computer audio. Because this is a free account, they're actually telling people to use this option rather than the phone-in option, just because their systems are just becoming inundated with everything. Then if you kind of scroll down here, you can just get all the different reminders, etc. You could also have these other bits enabled, but you're not going to be using any of those. You've got chat, private chat. You can save the chat's files transfers. Now, for some teachers, they might be using this, so you can make sure that that's switched on. If not, just switch it off. And then again, sharing screens, etc. And a lot of the time, it's just going to be you, so you just want to make sure that this is all set up correctly. But as I said, a lot of this is already set up as default. So with a lot of these things, you don't really need to worry about. It's more going to be these other settings about turning the videos on and off, because a lot of schools are, they don't want that to be enabled, especially for younger children. Imagine the noise and that on one of those meetings. The other thing you can do here is also making sure that you mute all your participants when they join a meeting. Now, as I said, a lot of schools are doing this. And sometimes, if parents are using the laptops for other things as well, they might forget to mute the audio, etc., when they're logging their child in for these online learning meetings, etc. So just to make it easier, it's just to make sure that you switch that on, so that now when you create all your meetings, you can make sure that everyone that joins is on mute, and that all your participants' video is off. So it's something that you don't have to then worry about kind of going forward. Set this up once, and then that's it. So if I go back to all these other settings, all these other admin settings, unfortunately, a lot of this you won't have access to, Zoom rooms, etc. That is going to be for paid accounts. Now, when you setting up your meetings, you can either do it on the web here and schedule all your meetings, or you can do it directly from the app. So if I just end that, I was just doing a test meeting earlier. So when you have the app installed on your PC, it can be Mac as well. I'm on a PC at the moment, so I've got the PC version. If I need to, I can do another video and just show you the Mac settings. It's very similar. There's just a few different things depending on the operating system. They have their own little quirks and that as well. But if you have got any questions regarding anything I'm currently going through, and that, just leave a comment below, and I'll make sure that it gets answered for you. As well, if you're enjoying the content of this video and you want to know when I post more videos, if you want to subscribe to the channel and click on the little notification tab button as well, you'll be then notified when I next post a video or when I next go live. So as I said, over here, if you're just doing a meeting and you're doing one straight away, you can just say new meeting, but a lot of the time you are going to be scheduling it. So when you go in here, just click on schedule, and you can, call this whatever you want to. Let's say you're doing an assembly, you can do those as well on here. So you could have assembly, and then you can then just schedule when that's going to be. So let's say it's going to be today at 12 o'clock, and the duration is only going to be 30 minutes. Remember that if you're on the basic Zoom account, your meetings are limited to 40 minutes, and you will be kicked out of your meeting after 40 minutes. Now, with all these other settings, meeting ID, just let it generate it automatically. It's going to automatically generate a passcode as well, but if you want to, you could set your own over here. And then you can also enable the waiting room. Now, as you can see here, in my main settings, I had that my host was off and my participants were off. So that's what this is now set up as, because this kind of syncs to the servers. So it's got all those settings already set up. And then it's just asking me which calendar I want to put that into. And then they'll give you some other options as well. So you can allow participants to join anytime, mute participants on entry. So if you haven't done some of the other bits, you can then just click on that. And then automatically record the meeting. So if you are recording your meetings, you can do that. And then just click on save. So now it's saving, and now it wants to save it to my Google Calendar. So now if I go back into Zoom here, what I can now do is if I go into my meetings, you can see I've now got this one there, and I can now start it. And I can say join with computer audio. Now I'm not going to switch my camera on, because if I did that, you kind of get this infinity effect, and we don't want that. But just the other kind of controls you have here is you have your mute function down here at the bottom, so you can just mute yourself if you need to. If your camera hasn't started, you just click on this and start your own video. Then there's a security tab. So if I click on this, so at the moment it's enabled the waiting room. So when your participants come, they'll go into the waiting room. You can also hide your profile pictures. And this is the other part of the security is at the moment we're allowing people to chat, rename themselves, unmute themselves, start video. So what you can do, especially teachers that don't want them to be able to do that, you can just click on that and click on the start video. So now what you're only allowing them to do is to rename themselves and use the chat function. Now when you've started your Zoom meeting, another security feature is you can lock the meeting. So kind of like 5-10 minutes into the meeting and you know that no one else is going to turn up, you could just lock it, which then doesn't allow anyone else into the meeting. Now if you already have the waiting rooms enabled, anyone joining won't just kind of join directly into the meeting. They will go into the waiting room. And if that happens, normally you will have a notification come at the top here to say that this person is waiting to come into the meeting. But sometimes you might miss that. So the other little tab here is participants. And if I click on that, it's now going to give me a list of all the participants. So, we're just hosting this one at the moment. There's no one else in there, so it's just me. And this is where you can mute and unmute people. So if, for instance, you are asking questions and you want people to answer them, you can unmute them, especially if you said that they can't unmute themselves. You can do that all from here. And if need be, you could also rename them if they're struggling to do that as well. Now, within here you do have your reactions. So this is where you can ask people to raise their hands. So for instance, if you have asked a question and you are going to get people to answer you, you can just use these reactions and allow them to kind of raise or lower their hands here, so that you know that they want to ask a question, for instance. So that's another feature. And then they have these other bits here where they can clap, thumbs up, and have these other little emoticons and all that at the bottom here. So that's another way that you can use to engage your audience or your pupils. You can also then click on this chat function here, and this is where you'll see all the chat that's going on in the chat room. And if you wanted to just message one person in particular, you can just click on this and just find their name in there, click on it, and then type the message, and it will only go to them. And then you have the record here. So if you are going to record your meetings, you can just click on this record, and it will then record it to your PC. And then once the meeting has finished, it will then save that for you. And depending on how long your meeting is, it depends, and the kind of the spec of your PC that you're using, it can take a few minutes to save and encode it all properly for you, so that you have a video file at the end. So if you do have any questions regarding any of this, please leave a comment below, and I will make sure that I answer them. And if you are new to my channel and new to the videos, please just leave a comment of new in the comment box, so that I can see the new people that are watching my videos. The last thing I wanted to just show over here is the share screen function. So if you are going to share your screen, if you're doing a presentation, for instance, you just click on share screen. Now, what it does here, I've got two screens on this PC, so it's asking me which one I want to share. Do I want to share screen 1 or screen 2? They have a whiteboard feature as well that you can use. And then you can also, if you've got browser tabs, etc. Open, you can just select either of these instead of just sharing your screen, and it will just share that browser for you. But the other thing they have here is the whiteboard. So if I click on that, and what's nice about this is that you can do drawings and etc. Stamps. Text, so you can then just write things and annotate things, for instance. So there we go. The eraser format, so you can change the colors and the size of the pen, etc. You can undo, redo, clear. And if need be, you can also save this as well, so that you could then send it to the students afterwards if you wanted to. So I'm just going to stop that share. You could also potentially share your iPhone screen, etc. if there's something that you need to show them on there. So this is more for like demonstration purposes. And then they have all these extra bits and pieces in here as well. But again, if it's not something that you're looking to use, these are more advanced features, then I wouldn't worry about. But if it is, then just play around with it. That's what I tell all my clients, is that with all of these bits of software, to really get to know them and understand them yourself, you do need to just play around with it yourself, so you can just see what all the different functions do, so that when you're on a live meeting, you're not then kind of testing these things out for the first time. You know, you do want to show people that you do know what you're doing in the meetings. So if there are certain functions that you want to play around with, you know, have a little play around with them, get familiar with them before you go into your meeting. You can just set up practice meetings and get a family member or that just to log into it, so that you can interact on it. And like I said, just play with some of these features. So that's all I wanted to go through on today's video. I hope it's going to be useful for teachers and anyone else that wants to use Zoom meetings in the future. You know, it's a great piece of software. It seems to have become the de facto now that everyone's talking about Zoom meetings. So, you know, if you're not using it, you can go and sign up for a free account at zoom.com. US, and then just start using it. You know, you can use it in business, you can use it in schools, you can also use it to, you know, keep in touch with family members. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you on the next one.